Have you ever felt the strange urge to fade away? Not to die, not to harm yourself, but simply to dissolve, like mist surrendering to the morning sun? No grand goodbye, no dramatic farewell, no scene to witness, just slipping quietly into nothingness. Not out of hatred for life, but from the sheer heaviness of it. It's as though the air has grown too thick to breathe, the weight of the days too much for your bones, the constant noise of the world too sharp for your spirit to endure. And yet, when such feelings surface, society often rushes to label them. It calls them weakness or illness or a crisis. But deep under the skin, beneath the stories we've been told, this desire can hold something far older, far more sacred, something rarely understood. What if this yearning to not exist is not about ending life at all? What if it's a quiet call for rebirth, a rebellion of the soul against the endless noise, a deep ache to step out of the roles and masks we've been forced to wear? Masks stitched together by other people's expectations, by our regrets, by the relentless grind of always doing. Perhaps it's not your life you want to end, but the version of you that had to be built just to survive it. You are not broken for feeling this way. You are not beyond hope. You are in the process of shedding. You are remembering something essential. You are not alone. This is not about walking into darkness. It is about discovering the deep stillness beneath it. It's not about despair. It's about what waits on the other side. Truth untainted by noise. Peace untouched by pretense. A self no longer bent under the weight of survival. So stay, breathe, listen. By the end of this journey, you might not want to vanish at all. You might instead feel ready to truly begin. If any part of this speaks to that shadowed corner inside you, don't push it away. Sit with it. Ask yourself quietly, which part of me wants to disappear? And which part longs, quietly but fiercely, to be found? Because deep down, beneath the layers you've been taught to show, your soul is already whispering. Not with words, but with a heaviness you can't shake off. A weariness that no amount of rest seems to heal. Days blur into one another. Faces pass like shadows. Clocks spin their endless circles, but nothing feels solid anymore. Not hunger, not joy, not even pain. It's as though you're moving through a fog, lungs full of air that doesn't satisfy. This isn't always depression, though it can look like it. Sometimes it's the spirit pulling away from the surface of life, refusing the endless noise. It's the heart quietly deciding it will no longer pretend to belong in places that have never felt like home. This is not the end. It is a form of resistance, a sacred rebellion against the roles that never fit you, the labels that crush the truth, the systems that demanded you wear a mask instead of living your meaning. The longing to not exist often blooms not out of frailty, but from an unshakable clarity. A knowing that the life you've been living has become unsustainable, not in the physical sense, but in the spiritual. It's the recognition that waking each day into a storm of noise, forever chasing worth and calling it purpose, has worn your essence down to a faint shadow. It is a call, not to die, but to vanish from false selves, to walk away from shallow wants, from cages disguised as comfort. And so you retreat. You stop answering messages. You look away from mirrors. Birthdays slip by without notice. You spend long stretches in silence, with no desire to re-enter the stage you once performed on. It's not because you hate life. It's because you've never truly met it. Not on its raw, sacred terms. You've only experienced it through roles handed down, through rules written by fear, through identities worn like heavy cloaks in sweltering heat. Maybe this emptiness is not a curse. Maybe it's the very first taste of truth. There comes a moment when the soul craves such deep solitude that even your own thoughts feel too loud. Not the silence of sound, but the silence of being. A space untouched by the past, out of reach from the future, invisible to those who only know you by your outer shape. You begin to drift, not aimlessly, but towards something wordless. A place that lives beyond labels, beyond expectations, beyond the stories told about you. A place where no one measures your worth, no one tries to mold you back into who you used to be. And here, the world cannot follow, Not because you're lost, but because you're finally unbecoming. Even light feels too bright. Even kindness feels like weight on your chest. It's not that you've rejected love. You simply need love that comes without conditions, without the demand to perform in return. You sit with your shadows. You speak in the language of silence. You let sadness rest on your chest the way rain rests on stone, without hurry, without agenda. There's no need to fix or rush or force a smile. You are not hunting for answers anymore, only for the truth you can feel. And you begin to realize you are not dying. You are dissolving. You are melting into something more primal, more real than you've allowed yourself to touch in years. And slowly, what once terrified you, stillness, solitude, the great empty, begins to cradle you. Not as a tomb, but as a womb. Not as an ending, but as a slow and holy re-beginning. You see now, this is not emptiness. It is spaciousness. A vast open field where false stories cannot take root, where only presence grows. Here, nothing matters, and yet everything feels sacred. Here, you are not a persona. You are not a performance. You simply are. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone else might be walking the same silent path, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. Stay grounded. Stay thoughtful. Stay awake. For more deep dives into philosophy, the human experience, and timeless truths, subscribe and turn on the bell. Wander the void with wonder. Question deeply. Think freely. Until next time, embrace the silence and let it speak.